How's it going, everyone? It's your favorite apostates. I'm McKay.
I'm Jordan. And don't go anywhere. Be sure to stick around because we are teaming up with Balessa to give away free toys. So stay tuned. So we are back today with a very requested video. Probably one of our most requested of all time. Even after doing the first one. Now, if you've been here for a while, you'll know that we did a video on Brooklyn and Bailey that was also in very high demand years ago. And it wasn't an insane deep dive by any means. It wasn't anything like our ballerina farm video that took me like months and months and months of work. And so it was just kind of more scratching the surface of the Mcknight family and kind of the Mormon influencer connection between all of them. That was a few years ago now. And so lots of things have changed, and I think a lot of things have stayed the same. And so due to the very popular demand for this video, the constant requests that we get, and because there have been changes, we thought it would be worth it to do a bit of an update video. Again, this is not a deep dive. I didn't do months of prepping for this video because I do have a full-time job and I have not had time. But I wanted to give time for the most notable updates, in my opinion, and some of the funny ones that I just think are... I don't even have words. That I just couldn't pass up. So this is going to be a recap of some of the things over the last few years. By no means is this in depth. By no means does this cover every horrible or amazing thing they've ever done. I don't claim to be the moral authority on whether you should like Brooklyn and Bailey or not. I am just presenting you the material that we have, and then you can form your own opinions on the two of them and this family. That is solely up to you. We are just the presenters and the messengers of information here.
For the information.
And then you and your wise little brains and your smart little selves can synthesize and figure out what you want to do with that information.
But before we get to that, let's talk about our sponsor for today, Balessa.
I still kind of can't believe this is real, but the world's first ever silent vibrator is here. Like, silent. No noise, full power. And lucky for you all, we're doing a giveaway with Balessa today, and literally everyone's going to win a free toy. So meet Whisper Bullet. Balessa's new Whisper tech makes sure you never need to choose between power and discretion. You can put your pleasure first without waking up the entire house, which we love, or even your partner sleeping right next to you. To each their own. Let's test it out.
Did you turn it on?
It is super cute, pink, luxurious, aesthetic little toy. The pack's a serious punch. She is powerful, you best believe, but somehow completely quiet. I don't get it, but I love it. It works. This is a must-have. And, I mean, it's smaller than my hand, so storage-wise...
Hello.
Bedside table, traveling suitcase, makeup bag.
And we're also going to highlight the Air Vibe. Awesome color. Waterproof. This one has two different modes. We got the vibration here, and we've got the suction over here. It goes in this awesome little charging case. Discreet, goes anywhere that you go, charges with a little USB. It's awesome.
Dual stimulation, best of both worlds. Can't go wrong.
And also we bring up Air Vibe because everyone who signs up wins a free Whisper Bullet or Air Vibe with a purchase of the Whisper Bullet. That's a $99 free gift. So check the link down in the description and grab your new Vibe. Once again, thank you, Balessa, for sponsoring this video.
Just as a quick refresher, if you are new here and you're not interested in watching the first video, there might be some confusion. It might be beneficial to start there first.
We'll give the bullet points,
but we'll give you an idea. The reason that we even talk about these two is because they are kind of unique in terms of YouTubers. The Mcknight family, as they are known, Brooklyn and Bailey is the primary channel. There are other siblings who we will also be talking about today, including Rylan and Camry. There are other younger children who we will not be talking about today because they are not adults. And Mindy, the mom of this whole family, all of this started because Mindy decided to start videoing herself doing her girls' hair when they were very, very young, like very, very little. And they didn't ever show the girls' faces. And that was it for a while. And then one day...
That channel was called Cute Girl Hairstyles.
Cute Girl Hairstyles, yep. And then one day they decided to change that and kind of allow Brooklyn and Bailey to have their own channel, and thus kind of the Brooklyn and Bailey avenue of social media was born. And it took off. It took off. They have millions of subscribers. They are no small channel. Brooklyn and Bailey are no small channel. Now, McKay will put their social media numbers up on the screen. They are in the millions. I think I saw their TikTok the other day was up in the 9 millions. Like, they are huge platform-wise. So when it comes to Mormon influencers, they are pretty high up there in terms of, like, YouTuber Mormon influencer popular. Like, they're pretty up there.
For sure.
So the majority of who we're going to be talking about today are the twins and their mom, with some other characters in between. But Brooklyn and Bailey and Mindy are who we're going to be spending the majority of our time on.
I want to add a little bit of a footnote here. They are twins, and I can never remember which one is which. And
I still struggle.
Before anybody comes for me,
we don't watch their content.
Well, for one, we don't watch their content. And for two, I have my older brothers are twins, fraternal twins, and people would get them wrong all the time. They look nothing alike.
They don't.
So I'm just putting it out there.
It's not to be a hater.
Yeah, these ladies, they're identical twins.
They're very cute.
And I can't tell.
Very adorable. This is no hatred towards them or anything. I really try. Okay. But if I get it confused, don't come at me in the comments. Okay.
Let's take a time machine back. We're going back to 2002.
2002?
2002.
Oh my God.
This predates.
I didn't even realize how old this review was.
Predates cute girl hairstyle and.
Well, she reviewed it in 2008, but she read it in 2002.
Oh, okay.
So 2008, technically.
I'm saying 2002 because it sounds better.
Okay.
Okay, this post, this is from Mindy's Goodreads profile from way back. So back in 2008, I guess that was probably like the early years of Goodreads, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's still ass. It hasn't changed at all.
But Mindy left a couple Goodreads reviews. One of them is a little more concerning than the other. Let's start with the less concerning one.
Well, let's just, I included the screenshot with the subreddit link in here and the user, because this is just like the best find.
Oh my God.
This is an iconic pull. So excellent suit 7082 in r/Mcknight family. Shout out to you, and shout out to r/Mcknight family and r/Mcknight fam snark, I think it is. I relied on the latter one very heavily for getting updated, and I've spent literally 2 days in your subreddit. So thank you to them and all of the users who contribute for helping me put together this video.
So the less concerning of the two is a review for Eclipse, which is the third book in the Twilight Saga. Mindy gave Eclipse a 3 out of 5 stars. And she says, quote, "Again, liked the book when the story was going, but very little story. Too many pages of nothing but gag, love story. Hate that it introduced sex to teenagers that aren't married and is promoting it."
The irony of that is so not lost on me. So deeply not lost on me, because if you didn't know, Stephanie Meyer, who wrote the Twilight series, is Mormon. I don't know if she's still actively Mormon, but she was, at least at the time of writing it. And Twilight was very pro waiting till marriage. In fact, being a romance reader at the time who also fell in love with the Twilight books, I thought it was lame that Belle and Edward were not getting it on until they got married, okay? And my mom thought it was great. So I don't know what the hell Mindy's on about here.
Sinner.
But it's promoting it.
She was on that ultra Mormon mode. The second more concerning review that she left was for The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. She gave it 3 stars, but she said, "It's a great example of the problems faced by Jews through the eyes of a teenage girl. You really feel for their plight of staying hidden and quiet all day. It is a little slow. You must read it at some point in your life, but it isn't one of my all-time favorites." Look, it doesn't have to be your all-time favorite.
I don't think that's the point.
Why would you say
it's a little slow?
I don't think we're reading The Diary of a Young Girl for the plot. That's just me.
You feel for their plight of staying hidden and quiet. That's what you took away from that is, oh man, it would have been terrible to be hidden and quiet. Did you read the end? Did you read? I know it's at the very back and it talks about what happens after the
God.
diary was written. But, girl, come on.
It's a little slow.
I was shocked by this. And then, of course, she gave the Book of Mormon 5 stars because...
I can't imagine giving Diary of a Young Girl 3 stars and the Book of Mormon 5 stars. That book is such a fucking snooze fest.
To be fair,
I'm
when I was Mormon, I
sorry.
did also give it 5 stars. I have fixed that since, but I will
Jordan
say...
has atoned for her sin.
I have.
I appreciate you. Is Dan Brown a Mormon thing? Because I see Dan Brown in here. My dad also read Dan Brown.
I feel like he's a well...
Or is he just like a right-winger thing?
I don't know, but I feel like I've seen his books before.
I don't know. Let me know in the comments.
I was debating on whether to include this or not, but in talking with McKay, I think it's important. We've covered other Mormon influencers and behavior that we think is just kind of sketchy or icky.
Yeah, concerning.
And obviously that runs the spectrum of like people doing very mild things. Like I think most people would classify the Mcknights as doing like mostly harmless, very mild things, depending on who you talk to. And I'm overgeneralizing here, to people like Ruby, Frankie, and Jody Hildebrand, who were, you know, Frankie was a family vlogger who is literally in prison now for child abuse. So like we've covered kind of the gamut of things, and we tried to point out when there are things that were like, that doesn't feel right. And we did that with Ruby quite a bit, where things that were like, that was maybe a sketchy thing, or maybe that's not okay. And one area where there's interesting overlap, not to say that they're similar in any other way other than they're family vloggers in Utah and they also did this, but there is evidence that Rylan, which is one of the younger siblings of Brooklyn and Bailey, was sent to a therapeutic boarding school for a while. This overlaps kind of with timing that followers of the vlog at the time noticed, where people would be like, where's Rylan? Where did she go? Why aren't they talking about her anymore? And they would give kind of weird non-answers, and she's like, I'd see comments where they would say like, oh, she's with family somewhere else, or, you know, she's doing something out, like just very weird nondescript answers. And so ultimately snark groups do what snark groups do, which is sleuthing, and a lot of times the information is accurate. And I wouldn't include it if I didn't think there was really some merit here. And so in the r/Mcknight fam snark subreddit, there are some fairly damning photos that kind of point to some photos that Mindy had posted of Rylan overlapping with a therapeutic boarding school that she was potentially at the time. So there are some photos that Mindy posted of her on her birthday, and you can see some overlap between she's sitting on a horse with some distinct features on its face that we'll come back to in a second. And then in the background is, we've got like the mountain, we've got the red fence, like the burgundy colored fence and 3 trees. And we can see that similar to this Facebook post of this therapeutic boarding school, there is some overlap there. Either that's really big coincidence that it looks like that, or there's some merit to that. And additionally, this horse that is also advertised on the Red Hawk Academy page, you can see there's some markings up towards the ears, and then there's some discoloration on the little fuzzy nose there, which also overlaps with the horse that Rylan is riding in that image. And then we also have some photos, which as a therapist, even with parent permission, I just don't love the idea of posting kids on here, even with parents' consent, because what kids are going to want to be tied to this years later? But that's just me as a human being, my opinion. But then we have Rylan here. The main feature we're looking at here is the necklace, which she often wears. The girl on the left here is wearing a necklace, which you'll see in these next photos, is one that she often has worn in other content, which people were able to recognize. And the other features seem to be the same. Then we have the facility, the same photo that Mindy posted, where there's this kind of brownish black leather couch and this kind of polka dotted pillow on there. And the website has photos of their couches and the pillows on said couches at this facility, which kind of seems to overlap with those photos as well. So this is, in terms of sleuthing, this is pretty incredible. I'm not going to lie. Like, the person who came up with this, Blue Tacoma, California, really incredible that somebody was able to put pieces together like this. This is like, you should be like a detective or a private investigator in your spare time, because that's like incredible work. I highlight this because we know, and I think it's becoming more commonplace that people are aware of something called the troubled teen industry, particularly the troubled teen industry in Utah. And I think this facility was in Arizona, and they actually, I think, have another facility in Colorado. They're still open, but if you look up, there's lots of information out there on these specific like therapeutic boarding schools or like wilderness camps like Chad Frankie went to, where you hear stories from the people themselves who attended these places, and it's not okay. I'm not going to say that all of them are like this, but enough of them are like this that it is massively concerning, particularly as a therapist. So we looked up this specific facility, this one that is in question in these photos, and there are, if you go to r/troubled teens, they kind of have like a very well planned, like thought out,
a little wiki of all these places.
And in this one in particular, there are multiple survivor and parent testimonials about problems with this specific facility. So I'm not saying these are true or not true. These are just reviews that have been posted. So the facility can't come and sue me. These are just the reviews that have been posted. There are no way that we have to verify whether these are 100% accurate or not. So that's just us covering our bases on the internet. This is just what has been posted on the internet that has allegedly happened at these places. And if this is true, this is deeply concerning. And I hope, maybe Ryland's experience wasn't like that. I hope it wasn't. Some people have good experiences at these places. It's not unheard of, but we thought it was important to bring it up because I think there's a reason why Mindy is so ashamed by it, honestly, and why other parents are often ashamed by sending their kids to these places. But can we not treat this as a learning opportunity? Like, can we not treat this as a learning opportunity? As like, I didn't know. I was simply trying to do what I thought was best for my kid. I thought this was the route to go. I didn't realize it was going to be effed up, and I screwed up, and I'm sorry. And that's my fault. And maybe because she has a platform, she can then advocate and prevent other parents from sending their kids to troubled teen camps, just because it's a common thing among Utah vloggers, apparently. And so I think Mindy could actually do some good here. Like, even if Ryland didn't have a bad experience, looking at these other stories of these other, like, allegedly not okay things happening. So could we have not used this as an opportunity to go, if you're having trouble with your teen, maybe don't go this direction or stay away from this place specifically, because my daughter didn't have that experience, but other people have, and you don't want that to happen to your kid. Like, that's my thought. But instead, nobody talks about it, and it's just a big shame thing. And it is Ryland's story to tell if whether or not she ever shares information about it is fair. But I think the person who has an opportunity to be accountable for this kind of sketchy shit is Mindy.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were speculating this was around like 2019, 2020, whenever it was. And that's kind of around the same time when Paris Hilton was talking about the abuse that she suffered at that facility in Provo, Utah. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of in the news in this time, but I mean, you can't expect everyone to have heard about this thing. So I feel like today, if you send your kid to one of these facilities, it's because you just don't care at this point.
There's enough information out there.
At that point, yeah, it's like,
maybe we could make a case.
Maybe we could, and yeah, I don't know. It's tough to call. Hopefully there wasn't anything awful that happened, and obviously I understand as a parent, like, sometimes you are in the fucking trenches and you don't know what to do, especially if you don't have anybody in your life that has experience with the problems that you're facing and things like that, especially if you're like someone who is breaking generations worth of trauma and bad parenting styles, and you are looking for an alternative of how to, exist happily with your kids, and that's something that you stumble upon. I totally get that, but obviously there needs to be some acknowledgement that a lot of these places are just not good. Despite having qualified staff,
this shit
whatever
still
it
happens.
is about the environment, there is just awful shit that happens at these places, and so many of them.
So let's be clear, we're not demanding any information from people who go to these places, because it's their choice and their story to tell on whether or not they share that information, if ever. But my point being is, like, this is an opportunity potentially for somebody who has a big platform within the community to be like, don't do this. Like, I went down that path, and even though it was fine for us, it wasn't fine for others.
It might not be okay for your kid.
So it could be an opportunity where she really could own up to it. And I think people would be responsive to that versus like just never bringing it up and never addressing it and, you know, those kinds of things. And I don't know, maybe she saw what happened to Ruby when Ruby was so public about it and decided that she didn't want to share it.
She's like,
but, you know, I think it's important to talk about, especially in just continuing to raise awareness about the troubled teen industry. And even if not everybody who went to that place experienced those things, it's still a massive issue at basically practically every one of these facilities. So that is this piece that I wanted to include. And I hope for anybody's sake, including popular YouTubers, that if they ever have to go to these places, they don't experience horrible things. But unfortunately, the troubled teen industry is it's just that. It is highly problematic. Okay,
so we're slowly making our way back up to like actual updates, but other things that we wanted to include that we missed the last go around. It's important to know that Brooklyn and Bailey have adoptive siblings that are Black, and especially in 2020 when there was a lot of social unrest regarding extrajudicial murders of disproportionately Black Americans by the police, and there was a lot of protests. If you were around, you know, obviously.
Especially in the United States during that time.
And because of that, and because of their siblings and Mindy's children, they were pretty vocal about that.
Which we love to see.
Maybe
credit where credit is due there. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't last.
Yeah. And maybe the execution could have been better. I can throw these Instagram posts up here. A lot of it has drawn some criticism that they're using their siblings as props. But more importantly, it should be noted that this was a highlight on their Instagram profiles.
Specifically, you'll see it in this photo specifically. There was, I don't know how many were in there because it's gone now, but there were some stories that kind of talked more about these things, including this screenshot you'll see here from June 8th, 2020. And you'll see that there's that little emoji in the corner there, which is representative of it's saved to a highlight on your Instagram. So it stays there forever. And then this lovely snarker in the r/Mcknight fam snark valuable ad 9577 pointed out that is gone now. Like the highlight itself with all of that stuff in there on the Brooklyn and Bailey page is gone. I don't know if the posts themselves are gone. I didn't scroll back that far. It looks like Mindy had a few that are still up that were around that same time. So it seems that it's just kind of weird to me that they deleted. I mean, the thing about the highlights is it stays on your profile, like at the top. Yeah. So you might have to scroll a little bit, but it stays on there. So you're going to see that like every time you come to somebody's page versus like stuff in your feed, you have to scroll back like a long time, like Brooklyn and Bailey posts like way too much. A lot. So it's like you would have to scroll back a considerable amount to get there. But the one that people would be able to see if they're because especially if you follow somebody, you'll go through their highlights and watch all their highlights if you're interested. And so they delete the one that's most visible or accessible. Seems weird.
Seems a little
It's not for me to say if their beliefs have changed because I don't necessarily think they have. It just seems kind of like a weird thing to do. Like you and I could sit here all day and theorize on why that might be, but I can see why it would be upsetting for people to be super vocal. Like this is what especially white people get a lot of criticism of in these spaces is like, you know, posting black squares on their profile and talking big talk when these things happen. And then consistently as the movement grows and as it dissipates and people forget, and then white people just decide to take like an inactive response, delete shit, not talk about it anymore. Like posting on your profile shouldn't be the only thing that you're doing to keep active in these types of discussions and discourses. And that's where a lot of white people get deserved criticism for doing that. And so we don't know what they do in their spare time. Maybe they are more active in these areas and in activism in general than they're letting on. But it just seems weird to some people for it to be gone.
I mean, is there like a limit to highlights?
No.
I'm like Instagram illiterate.
No. So. I don't think there, if so there's like, they only have a few.
There's no real reason to delete a highlight.
No. Unless you want it like gone. Because all those stories, like, because you know, stories are only 24 hours anyway. So if you don't see it after the 24-hour mark, you're never going to see it again. So it just kind of immortalizes it on your profile. But if that's gone, then it's gone. And with how often these two posts, like Brooklyn and Bailey post, if you're scrolling back to 2020, you're going to be sitting there for a while.
It takes longer to load all that than it does to actually scroll.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And I don't know. Take away from it what you will.
Again, we're just presenting
this for you. But let's get back to stuff that is more current.
So in terms of Mormon influencers, one of the things that we kind of watch for is the interesting ways in which Mormon influencers kind of integrate Mormonism into their brand or not into their brand.
Yes.
And it's always just a fascinating discussion in and of itself. But something that I find interesting is like you have influencers like Not Enough Nelsons and like Ruby Frankie who pretty integrally kind of have Mormonism front and center.
Throughout.
Like it's fairly evident. Like you can't go a few posts without noticing garments or noticing a giant Jesus photo or noticing like, posting pictures every Sunday. Like, a lot of them do. So I scrolled through Mindy's Instagram because I was just curious because she is, she's Mormon mom, head of the family in some sense, depending on who you ask. And I was just curious as to whether or not she's posting Mormon-ish content anymore. And if I did not know she was Mormon and I was scrolling through her content dating back to 2023, I would have no clue. Because she doesn't wear garments, or at least she doesn't wear them all the time, which is different, right? Like there's a lot of discourse. If you've been here before, there's a lot of discourse around Mormon influencers who do or don't wear their garments. I wouldn't say she's immodest, but she very obviously wears things that are not garment compatible. Like tank tops, shorts that wouldn't be garment compatible. She wears shorts that are shorter than her knee, like tank tops, shorter, like, things that if she were wearing garments, it would be very obvious. So that's not pointing me towards Mormonism. And she's not pointing me towards anything else that is Mormon heavy. Like no Jesus stuff, no Jesus quotes, no Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
None of that. So the farthest I scrolled back was 2023, and I scrolled back to like 2020 and around there too. But 2023 was the most recent one that I found that was actually like Jesus/Mormon oriented, and it's not even Mormon specific. It's just a Martin Luther quote.
Yeah, the Martin Luther quote is like not even no Mormonish stuff there.
But if I saw this in a lineup, I would be like, this is a Jesus Mormon influencer going to church on Sunday picture. Yeah. Without question. It looks like it was Easter from the emojis and the date.
The resurrection quote.
That's the most recent thing I could find, which I think is very interesting for this is these are Mormon influencers who in some sense seem to be distancing themselves from the Mormon narrative.
Well, and we're going to talk about more kind of like a big just bunch of them all at the same time, and this will come up then too, but it seems like on like Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas, those are when they will make a post about their faith, because those are like kind of the big times to be like focused on faith and everything like that.
Yeah.
But then like when they stop doing that, it's like, are you slipping out of your faith, or is your brand slipping out of your faith and you don't want it part of your brand anymore? Because
that's a very different question.
Yeah. It's like the internet kind of has this really love-hate relationship with Mormonism, depending on what social media platform you're on. On TikTok, at times, Mormonism is kind of cutesy and quirky and whatever. And a lot of times on Instagram, it's just Christians absolutely eviscerating Mormons and saying this is just heresy, it's blasphemy, blah, 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 whatever. So I can see where, from a brand perspective, maybe you don't want to include that anymore because it can be such a volatile conversation about things that you hold very dearly. And with Mormonism, it's the main pillar of your life. It's a high demand religion. And when people are criticizing and attacking your faith, it feels like a personal attack.
What I find interesting looking at Mindy's content, particularly on Instagram, compared to her husband's, is very different. It is very different. Like I pulled up Sean's Instagram today, who is the father of this family. And the first video I see is him dancing with the BYU mascot. And like all of the, like practically
BYU
all
is
of the
the
following
Lord's
posts,
school.
it is the Lord's University. It is the Mormon University. So every single, like, his profile is loaded with BYU. It's BYU everywhere, which, I mean, I understand if you're, I mean, most Mormons are big BYU fans. That's fine. But it's interesting to me because he is very obviously wearing garments.
Yeah.
Very obviously. I even have more recent photos that kind of point to, thanks to the subreddit, somebody noticed this, that you can see garments here fairly
The
obviously.
little upskirt.
Yeah. We're not seeing anything inappropriate, but it's, you know, fairly confident
It's
those
noticeable.
are garments. It's noticeable.
No, it's not even fairly. That is like 100%.
That is 100%.
That is what it would look like when I would sit with shorts on.
That's fair.
So
I'm always cautious, but
shout out.
Seems like it would not be something else. So we've got that as evidence. And then last year during Christmas time, if you're not familiar, the Light the World campaign, those little charity vending machines that you see sometimes out and about, especially if you live in a big city, those are Mormon sponsored. They're run by Mormons. I'm not going to say that they don't go where the money says it's going to go, because I would hope that they do. I have no reason to believe that they don't. But what they do with the other money that comes in from members should make you second guess.
Yeah.
It is a PR campaign through and through. But then there's this photo of him with the church vending machines last year that Mindy also posted on her story, which is interesting because if you think about posting Mormon stuff on your story, that stuff goes away in 24 hours. So you're not going to give people much to look at in terms of like big Mormon identifiers on your feed if you're just posting them to your story. And I don't follow her, so I don't know. So you can sound off in the comments if you feel like she posts things on Instagram on stories more often that are more Mormon related. But I did think that is an interesting point compared to her feed, which stays there like forever. And also in line with not wearing your garments, which let me be the first to say, I don't care if you're wearing garments or not. But in terms of the series, it is the most asked question, so we always have to address it.
Well, and it's usually a key indicator for how seriously people are taking and how well they're representing what it is to be Mormon.
Absolutely. So Mindy has a hair care brand, which if you're not aware, it's called Heritage by Mindy. You can find it in like pretty common retailers like Walmart. Yeah. I know for sure. I think Kroger. I came across this ad. I'm going to call it an ad. But I just, if you're a Swiftie, you know what this is from. This is like a very poorly done remake of the 1989 Bad Blood music video. And this is just cringe for me. I don't know. This is just me being petty. You can hate me for this. I don't care. I just think it's cringe. I'm even a Swiftie. So even I can get behind Swiftie marketing to some degree. But this is just kind of weird for me. Also, the Are You Ready For It reference, despite this being an entirely different album, like we're talking about 1989.
We're nitpicking, babe.
I don't know. But I just think it's kind of cringe. And she posts some she'll post things where it's like Brooklyn or Bailey wears an outfit and then she wears a very similar outfit. And then they'll like post it to stories and be like, how she wore it, how I wore it. And it's like, it just kind of seems like, it's like, when like people are struggling with like being their age, or they like really want to be younger than they are. Like that's the vibe that it's giving. And if that's not how she feels, then great. But I like the behavior gives that vibe.
That's the vibe.
A blast forward.
We're getting more current. Bear with us. We're getting more current, but this happened since the last time that we did a video. So we're late to the party on this, but we wanted to have enough substance to put together a full 45-minute long yap sesh or whatever it ends up being. But at the end of 2023, Brooklyn and Dakota, who I think were only engaged the last time that we did a video.
I can't remember if they were together or not.
I'm not sure.
I don't think they had gotten married yet. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't think they were married. But anyway, they opened up a soda shop in Texas, which is a little interesting because we've talked about soda shops. You can check out a video that we did about that. And we kind of mentioned this one a little bit. Mm-hmm. But soda shops are like a really big Utah, Arizona, Morador situation kind of product. And bringing it to Texas is a really interesting choice because there's not like a really big population in Texas. But so in Texas, and I don't think it's in any of the cities that have like a really big Mormon population, or like even ones that are big enough to justify a temple or anything. So I don't know. They're probably just going to try to convince people that are around, and they've been growing. They started with this one at the end of 2023. They're opening a new one already. They already have another one planned for next year.
They're on track, they say, for like
one
location a year. I read an article from their town.
So obviously, props to them for growing. I'm just actually surprised because usually when you're outside of those demographic specific areas, they don't tend to do well. Like we've had some pop up around here in Colorado and they didn't do well. They closed. So
but there is one in Colorado Springs, which is far from us.
Oh,
and that is heavy Mormon populated area, and that one is still there and doing well.
Yeah.
So I think the Mormon population speaks to a lot. But you also have to keep in mind, like, there are plenty of people who aren't Mormon who watch these girls who might live in Texas.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way in terms of marketing. It does
go a long way. That's a good point. Because the people who were opening them around here probably didn't have any social media or anything.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting to see that they're opening a soda shop in Texas and they're actually doing well. I don't know. I've only ever blown through parts of Texas like one time in my life. And so I don't know what the culture is like regarding soda. And things like that. But a lot of people,
in the comments.
Yeah, a lot of people are from Texas. So let us know if you are surprised that this is actually making it and growing.
So in line with the soda shop, like talking about Brooklyn and Bailey and where they are, like if you remember when we started like our first video, like I don't think Brooklyn was married yet. She might have been. I think her and Dakota were dating at least because we brought him up and read his love letter to Trump. But Bailey was married at that time, and it was a bit controversial in the community at the time because a lot of people who thought she was still Mormon, she didn't get married in the temple, did not wear a Mormon dress, and her husband is like related to the Duck Dynasty folks, like the Robertsons, I guess, and he's not Mormon at all. So either like people were like, oh, mixed faith marriage, or like not. And so you have to keep in mind, like, it seems like there's some movement in terms of labeling yourself as like whether you're Mormon or not. And there's plenty of people who I know who are not Mormon anymore who just call themselves like culturally Mormon. Like culturally, I'm Mormon. I use it because it makes sense. It makes a lot of my behavior make sense. Like it just works. Okay. So regardless of whether or not we have a definitive answer, and we'll come back to that in a second, like with the soda shop in particular, one, it's like a very Mormon vibey thing to do, just from the get-go, right. Number one. But two, when they were naming drinks, I don't know if this was in the beginning or if this is when they were opening up their new location or what, but they like posed it to the public.
It looks like they did it because of a football game.
Oh, that could be too.
Versus Baylor.
Well, they went to Baylor. Brooklyn and Bailey both went to Baylor.
Yeah, in Texas.
Yeah.
They were probably playing football.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
That time.
But regardless, they were looking for name suggestions for drinks. Whether this was long-term or not, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But the ideas that they came up with was the BYU drink was the Super Soaker, which if you're missing context there, we have a video on that for you as well. So never fear. But then they had the Baylor drink, which like McKay said, this makes sense if they were doing a game, which is called Ring by Spring, which is also a Mormon and just like general Christian evangelical university phenomenon where you're trying to get married rather than graduate, really. They introduced these two things, and then I guess people got really upset. Like, I almost feel kind of bad for them because I don't understand. Like, I think this was had in good faith fun, and I guess people freaked out about it.
And like the stuff that they do between each other with BYU and Utah whenever they play football. Oh yeah,
I mean, I went to the U. We were nasty.
The nastiness between those two. So yeah, honestly, it's like
that's just kind of how it goes. But they put this video, this story on their Instagram that I will play for you, kind of talking about this whole debacle and what happened.
We're so sorry if we offended anybody. It was not intended to be that way. We were giggling. My whole family went to BYU. It was just supposed to be a joke.
So it could be just because I'm biased. But it seems like she was going to say Mormon. We all went to BYU. caught herself. So I found that interesting. And I just think it's stupid.
Quite.
Like, I just think it's stupid. Nobody should be fucking freaking out over this. This is like legitimately, people need to calm down. And then to take it one step further, on their story, they also posted, we normally would just brush the comments off, but people were literally calling the Sip City locations and employees and threatening them. So the safety of our friends is more important. Now, if that's actually true, you guys are fucking wild. That is crazy. Seriously. I don't blame them if that's actually what was happening, but like, be so for real right now. Like, are you that? These people.
Sad.
Mormon Karens got too much time on their hands, is
Seriously.
what I will say.
Sad. No fun.
No fun.
Losers.
So in that same kind of vein, they don't really talk about Mormonism on their page, on their Instagram, on their TikTok. It's just not, it's not there.
Well, it hasn't really been like
no
a sit down, this is what we believe
Nope.
kind of situation anyway.
Nope. And not that anybody's entitled to that information. Like if you leave a faith or if you have a faith transition, those things are very personal and they're very private and nobody's entitled to that. But if you profess to be of a religion at one point in your life, and especially if you're high profile, people are going to do what they're going to do and they're going to wonder, you know?
Yeah.
So I could not really find much addressing this other than some like not getting married in the temple, not wearing modest clothes, which again, I don't care if they wear modest clothes. I wish them to wear whatever the hell they feel comfortable.
Yes.
But that is a defining characteristics for how other Mormons identify each other is if they are wearing modest clothing. Now, despite the fact that neither of them, to our knowledge, have gone through the temple, they're still supposed to dress like they have garments anyway. And so that should be reflected in their wardrobe, regardless of whether they have gone to the temple or not. So the only thing that I could find that like still very vaguely addressed this was a story that says, do you and Brooklyn have different religious views? And Bailey said, it's not really a topic we talk about on here a lot, mostly because we like to keep it private, but yes. And amongst the subreddit and like amongst other comments and things, I've seen people say like Brooklyn or Bailey and her husband have said that they've been kind of exploring other things or not definitively leaning Mormon or something along those lines. It still seems very vague posting up in the air. But to say that her and her sister have different religious beliefs, I think is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, especially growing up Mormon and to like publicly admit that when your family is like so entrenched in it, or at least seems to be, it's really odd. I mean, like in my personal life, even like I have lots of friends who were from my mission on my Facebook and lots of family and other people. I don't ever post that I'm ex-Mormon. Like I don't talk about it or anything because those are not conversations I want to have with those people because I don't think a lot of them are ready to hear it. Usually if those people are okay with me being ex-Mormon, they have already encountered me on the internet and they message me. So that's how I like it. I feel like it's best like that. So to be kind of vague posting like this, I mean, it seems pretty serious.
I get it. And again, it's not information that anybody is owed, but people are going to wonder. Yeah. This came up in the r/Mcknight family. I thought this was a very astute observation. And this is why I rely on the subreddits a lot, simply because you guys watch their content. And so you have eyes for things like this that if I watched it, I would not pick up on. So, you know, I have to watch content sometimes, but we do not consume their content. I don't watch any of their stuff. And so, like, we rely on you guys to tell us these things so that we can then kind of put this information forward. But this was a very interesting observation made by dry_reception_3018, which is a very fitting username for this post. Thought they didn't drink, ? In Bailey's recent pantry organization, I swear I see wine bottles at the bottom of the pantry. I thought they stated multiple times that they don't drink alcohol. And then another commenter on the same post, careless ad 3968. Bailey has said she and Asa have gotten drunk together before during a Q&A with her parents in Brooklyn, which I found fascinating, by the way. Mindy, Sean, and Brooklyn did not look amused, which if they're Mormon, that's going to track. She has also said that she and Brooklyn have different religious views, which I just showed you, and that she and Asa were questioning their religion. Maybe she's deconstructing from Mormonism. So this is kind of the ultimate sentiments that I see around this coming up in the subreddit is there seems to have been conversations where they said they're questioning or they're not really a part of it anymore. They have different religious views or whatever. But the alcohol in the home of a former Mormon is very damning, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I alcohol is like a hallmark of like, if you have it in your home or whatever, because I don't know exactly what's here, but it doesn't look like stuff that you cook with.
Nope.
Just off of my own experience of cooking and everything like that. Like, it's one of those things where if you grew up never having alcohol, you're an adult, you've never tasted alcohol, it's not something that you're really seeking after unless like you left a church that expressly prohibited it.
Yeah.
That's at least a lot of ex-Mormons experience, not everybody, but when you see alcohol in the home of someone who grew up in a house where they didn't have alcohol, nobody was drinking alcohol, then it is kind of, you know, people notice.
People notice.
These kinds of things.
This is a very interesting observation. And garments are one where people are hazy on, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, people are like, some Mormon influencers don't wear their garments. And it's like becoming more of a conversation, which I think is just ridiculous. But alcohol is very black and white.
Yeah.
There is no like...
Not wearing your garments is, you know, whatever, just put them back on. But drinking alcohol will preclude you from temple attendance.
Yeah. You're going to have to confess to the bishop and repent for that one. Yeah. And that there's no like, it's suggested that is literally black and white. You cannot drink alcohol. You cannot do drugs. Like that's very black and white in Mormonism. That's not one where you're going to have people like Mormons argue with us about it. Like sometimes Mormons will argue with us about garments, like especially more lax Mormons, but you're not going to get a Mormon that's going to argue with you about alcohol. It's just not going to happen. So to me, this is pretty damning.
Yeah. Or maybe she's Mormon 2.0 now.
Maybe she's, Lisa Barlow Mormon 2.0. Other damning evidence that I thought was interesting. Tattoos.
Not only just tattoos, but what kind of tattoos?
Throne of glass tattoos.
Throne of glass tattoos.
Throne of glass tattoos that destroyed me, and I will never be the same ever again.
Shout out to Throne of Glass. I'm in the throes of Empire Storms right now. Jordan just finished the other day.
I'm never going to be the same. I'm never going to be able to read another book again. But nonetheless, we appreciate this. But tattoos are something that, you don't associate Mormons with tattoos. Like, they used to be very expressly forbidden. Like, when we were growing up, it was no question, no doubt about it. You do not get tattoos. You are not allowed. Nowadays, they took it out of the kind of instruction pamphlet for the youth, which has led to a lot of, like, younger Mormons who feel like, oh, so it's not in there anymore.
It must be okay.
It must be fine.
Yeah.
So this could also be kind of in line with a Mormon 2.0 where people feel okay and comfortable with tattoos now because it's not expressly forbidden, generally speaking. But you're still going to find like older cultural Mormons who are like, absolutely not, do not get tattoos. It's not okay. Jesus isn't okay with it. You're marking your body. Your body's a temple, like that kind of bullshit. So I found this interesting. I don't know. I think they have more than just the one that's displayed here. I think Bailey in particular, but Brooklyn tends to be the one that I feel like leans more Mormon. Okay, and then the ones that were present day.
Present enough.
Present close enough here. The one that I got the most DMs about, holy shit. I didn't even find out from social media. Like I said, I don't follow these people. So I didn't even find out from social media, really. Like, it was like people in my inbox that were like, oh my God, look, have you seen? Like, it was wild. So,
I did.
You did?
This broke the internet so bad that it reached my algorithm on TikTok.
Damn, Brooklyn. Okay.
I got pregnancy announcement videos from their account on TikTok.
Shut up.
Naturally.
They have a big following on TikTok.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Get that bag.
They were getting over to me. And I mean,
your algorithm's weird.
It's total brain rot. Just absolutely just chronically online bullshit. And then this is popping up. Although we were talking about Not Enough Nelsons a whole bunch, and I got like Not Enough Nelsons edits on my TikTok too, this last week.
Ew.
And I was like, okay, I definitely have to hit not interested on this one.
Yeah. So this was announced in July of this year, right? July, Brooklyn is pregnant. She is due in January of 2025, if I recall correctly, and they are having a boy. This is huge. I remember I visit the Snark sub on occasion to just make sure that I'm not missing anything major. And I remember months before she announced her pregnancy that people were speculating that she was going to be announcing shortly. And a lot of them were right. So it's interesting. Out of the two of them, based on the religious inclinations, I would have picked Brooklyn first. It is, it's in the Mormon cultural bloodline to have kids and have them young.
Yep.
So this is on track with that, and you know, they're married, so all's good there. Because of that ushers in a new influencer era.
A new influencer era.
Which is pregnancy content. Am I right?
Woo-woo.
Am I right? We all love it when our favorite influencers get pregnant, right? Like Brittany Dawn. Yeah.
Woof.
Becomes a whole new level of insufferable. So anyway, one of the things that I found interesting was Brooklyn, who is allegedly more leaning towards Mormonism from the vibes that I pick up, has also done kind of what a lot of the people that we talk about who are Mormon or who are funny in some kind of way, like evangelical or Christian or whatever, they go crunchy. And we don't have time today to talk about what the crunchy pipeline does and where it takes you to. We don't have time for that conversation. But I did want to highlight that is happening here in some degree, because we're doing an unmedicated birth outside of the hospital, according to Brooklyn. That is her plan. And she's also talked about seeing a chiropractor and like getting adjustments while pregnant and things, which we're chiropractor haters over here. So I'm sorry. You can hate it. That's fine. And then the thing that has bothered people that I have seen specifically from the subreddit, and people also DM'd me this as well, is she is talking about using doTERRA, which is a well-established MLM. We have a video on Mormons and MLMs if you're curious, which is a very established MLM that she's using during pregnancy. I don't know how she's doing it. Also, influencers lie all the time. Influencers say they use shit when they don't. So who knows if she's actually using it.
She's getting paid to say that she uses it.
Exactly.
Down
this is
here,
an ad.
Hashtag ad.
A lot of y'all have been commenting that you think my voice has changed. I've had a lot of y'all suggesting in my DMs that because I'm pregnant with a boy, his hormones are causing my voice to lower. And honestly, I'm not totally sure if it's the pregnancy hormones. Also, shout out to doTERRA for sponsoring this video. Since I got pregnant, I've used a lot of essential oils to help with things during pregnancy. And the peppermint oil is super awesome. And I feel like it really helps clear up my breathing. So I'll just put a couple drops in the corner of the shower. Then when it gets steamy, I'm breathing it in. I use the peppermint oil, so if you want to grab some, just go to doTERRA.com. Let me know if you think my voice has actually changed and if you think it's related to the pregnancy hormones. And also, let me know if you've experienced anything similar.
Thank you for doTERRA for sponsoring this video.
Her voice changed because of being pregnant?
I don't know if that's an actual thing or not.
Never heard of that.
I was pregnant with a boy and I did not have that.
I would notice.
You would notice. My nose grew to like this size, but I didn't remember that.
I would have noticed. I swear to God.
So anyway,
doTERRA sponsored misinformation.
Can we talk about a very Mormon influency thing to do? All the Mormon influencers get essential oil sponsorships, especially with doTERRA. Like at this point, they like probably have like a Mormon influencer database, and that's just like who they run through is the Mormon influencers. And this is consistent throughout their family because ironically, even their sister Camry, who is in med school right now, it also has posts sponsored by doTERRA, which I thought was really interesting because she just graduated from BYU and is going to med school now. And she's posting like Deep Blue, which is a doTERRA product, and having a Deep Blue diffuser, which is interesting if you're going into the field of medicine. That's all I'm going to say about that. I just found that to be interesting.
Whatever. And then just to round this little update that we have out, we think it's important to always, when we talk about people who are like family vloggers, who are putting their children out there on the internet and making money off of it, it's important for us to talk about why we personally think that's unethical and dangerous and will likely lead to problems down the road, whether that be emotional or psychological issues or something. Obviously, we don't know because children need to grow up a lot of times for those things to manifest, and some of them are still children out there on the internet. But people like Brooklyn and Bailey grew up being out there on the internet and have experienced that realm and probably have things to say regarding that topic.
Do you think it's like, okay, so I know I've seen videos where people like call out certain family vloggers and things like that. Growing up in social media and being around that and seeing it really develop like before your eyes while you were kids, do you think I don't know, like, do you think it is as bad as people make it out to be? Have you seen situations where it has been horrible?
Oh, yeah.
What's your experience in that?
Totally. It's as bad, as, if not
totally
worse,
is.
than people make it out to be. I think, like, kids that grew up in our generation, social media really wasn't, like Bailey's been saying, it's not... I feel like adults that were doing it with their kids didn't understand. Nowadays,
They know.
People know.
Yeah.
And
You know what
you
you're
make
doing.
money with kid content.
Yeah, you know what
and
you're doing.
So a lot of people, I've seen quite a few families who pull their kids out of school and they're
Whoa.
making content full time and homeschooling. And, you know, I think there does become a point where you're kind of crossing this line of taking your children's childhood kind of away.
How did your
Yeah.
parents navigate that with you guys?
They were actually really pretty respectful of who wanted to be in videos and who didn't. We had our fourth sister down, like Brooklyn, me, Camry, and Rylan. Her name's Rylan. She wasn't interested in being in videos as much, and so she didn't get filmed. And then, of course, the conspiracy theories came out. People saying she was the least favorite child because she wasn't in the videos.
Oh my
but
God.
really, it was my parents trying to respect a
chose,
boundary.
yeah.
So it's just different.
I think it's interesting because this isn't exactly the response that I would expect from the two of them, if I'm being honest. Their experience online, I think, was really different because they were really, like, I watched other clips of this podcast where they talked about how Mindy was on YouTube before AdSense was even on there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like YouTube was very different at the time. Like, I think one of them talked about how it was like cat videos. It wasn't like people competing to be influencers like it is today.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, you know, people making millions and their entire
It was
lives
for-
and incomes revolve around YouTube.
It was the thrill of a video going viral at the
Yeah,
time.
it was. I mean, it's kind of like TikTok, really, in my mind.
Yeah.
There was no like I can make a sustainable career out of this, but people have even done that with TikTok now. But I found it interesting that they were both willing to recognize like, no, this is bad. And when asked about whether or not like what they're going to do with their own kids, Bailey had said that she was going to lean towards not showing them very much, and Brooklyn and Dakota were unsure, which I found interesting because this was timed. I think she was either just pregnant or maybe not pregnant
This was
yet.
10 months ago, so I don't even think they had announced.
No, they hadn't even announced yet. She
Yeah.
might not even been pregnant yet based on the date of this podcast. But it's interesting because now that's going to be obviously a topic that a lot of people are wondering about is, are they going to post their kid on social media now
Yeah.
that they're going to have baby content, you know? And there's lots of money to be made from baby content. So I can see why it is appealing for people. But I think it will be interesting to see ultimately what they decide to do. But I'm glad that the two of them are not in the dark on
Yeah.
the dangers of family vlogging. At least it doesn't appear that, at least Bailey doesn't appear that way.
And I think it's great that they have shared that piece with people, because I feel like a lot of people, and they acknowledge that there are a lot of people out here like us who are like sounding the alarm on these kinds of things. And there are people who just continue doing it and don't give a shit what kind of criticisms
We're
are out there,
beyond
because they're
not knowing at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, they have to know, they have to have had incidents or something. And if they don't, or if they haven't, I hope they don't have those kinds of situations.
Well, they have. They've talked about
But-
the two of them have had stalkers before.
Yeah.
And that's before they even had kids or anything. And so it's like it's concerning.
Yeah.
When you add children into the mix.
But to see people finally acknowledging that it's not all sunshine and roses, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's what people earn a living on, and there's consequences of that. It's good to see at the very least that is what's going on. So we'll leave that as a nice little bow on today's presentation of an update on Brooklyn and Bailey / cute girl hairstyles, or whatever you want to call it.
There are probably things that we didn't include that you think are important, or there are probably things that you think are not important, or anywhere in between. And so that's fine. Your feelings about it are valid. Just
Totally.
know we would have, like, people already complain about the length of our videos.
Nobody wants to
And
watch
so we would be here
an hour and a
for
half long
days.
video, and
We have to make
here we
hard
are.
decisions about what to cut and what to keep. And I understand if you would do it differently, hop on and do it yourself. That's fine. But
or in the comments.
or drop it in the comments. But overall, I mean, of all the Mormon influencers we cover, I feel like Brooklyn and Bailey are pretty low on our harm done list. I feel like Bailey's practically not even on it anymore, other than, you know, some of the just racist stuff that I would rather not be there that could be easily rectified.
Yeah.
So, because I'm sure, I don't feel like Bailey's still paying tithing. In my mind, she's not. Those two things just not go together. But I could be totally wrong. So, of all the people, it is kind of nice sometimes to take a refresher after covering people like Ruby. Like, at least with these two, I'm not worried about them, like, committing crimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's all in the perspective, right?
I hate that that's our perspective.
I hate that we have such a spectrum. Like, we really do have such extremes.
Anyway, if this is something that you like, you want to see more of, you can hit the subscribe button down below. If you'd like to support us further, you can become a member. It's like right next to it. You can get some cool little perks, or you can become a patron. You can go to Jordan McKay's or patreon.com/Jordan McKay. You get the same benefits. YouTube, there's a little added benefit of being integrated with YouTube comment section and chat benefits, but get the same stuff either way. We also have social media. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram. Maybe we need to join Blue Sky. Let us know if you're on Blue Sky, if it's something that we need to get on, because after joining Threads, bad taste was left in my mouth for how it dropped off almost immediately.
Yeah.
So fuck that. But you can find us on those other places, not Blue Sky yet, at Jordan McKay. So check us out on TikTok and Instagram. We also have a super duper cool Discord community that you can find the invitation to in the description. We've got cool conversations, cool people. So it doesn't even have to be related to us. Join. There's something for everybody there.
Oh, and our 2024 influencer roundup video is coming up. So if you wanted an update on a Mormon influencer.
This was actually supposed to be that one, but Jordan started looking in on Brooklyn and Bailey, and she was like, we just need to do one dedicated to them.
I have too much content.
So I was looking at other people and in the meanwhile, but...
So that video is coming up. So if you want us to cover certain influencers, drop them in the comments.
Anyway, we love you. You're awesome. Your hairstyles are cute. And we'll see you next time.